We're going to be talking about all those very good things today. So I will be sharing my screen just with a few slides and not my email. Here we go. Let me put it in.
There we go. We can see your PowerPoint. Thank you.
I'm so glad people are laughing at my very dry jokes. I appreciate the love.
Awesome. We can see
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, well, the topic here today we're talking about, and Sarah's already leaned into it. I think in my context, our frontline is the majority of our workforce. And within the ShopRite environment, that is a very many people, I think. And what makes that significant is that is where our impact lies. So if we cannot harness the frontline, the vast majority that is distributed, we have to ask ourselves how effective are we being when it comes to internal comms. So decentralized, distributed, that's definitely where the focus is. Let me just go to the next slide. Here we go. Okay, so in my space, we've got 170,000 employees that work for us. That means that we are the largest private sector employer as the ShopRite Group. And the people that we serve from a group internal comms perspective are our drivers. They are on the roads. They are from the DC driving our trucks and getting stock to our stores. They are our beautiful cashiers, our packers, our admin managers, our branch managers. We have almost, I think, 12,000 about office staff, people that are office-based powering our operations. So as you can hear, there is a vast diversity within our employee group. Roles are different, locations are different. We are in Africa as well. So that, you know, your Lesotho's, Mozambique, Angola, sometimes there are language barriers that we also need to contend with. But all of that said, all those employees require communication. They require connection with a company. And that is where we come in. Obviously, internal comms is not an island on its own. We are contributors to engagement. Our colleagues in the people team or in HR, they are the drivers and the holders, but we are strong and significant contributors to help move that engagement for all of this workforce and in your spaces as well. So how do we build a comm system that reaches more people effectively? There's 5 points that I'm going to share, and I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts at the end. So I think this is really a biggie for me. I've seen in the years that I've been in internal comms, sometimes we design communication that is incompatible with where our people are. And what I mean by that is we write lengthy emails, we choose a channel that they can't access. There are often flaws in the way that we think about delivering that communication. And maybe we're not in touch enough with their reality. So what we tend to do is we have listening exercises where twice a year, or maybe a little bit more, we make sure we get into our stores. We get into our stores, we walk the floor, we ask employees, have they seen this? Have they seen that? We go into the canteen area, we look at where the posters go up. We ask about huddles, whether there is sort of a formal stand-up and that kind of thing, just to get into the workspace. So I think similarly in your environments, it really is important to understand not just the writing and the editorial part of things, the channel, which is the conduit, but it's important to understand right at the end of that chain, what does the environment look like that the comms will be landing in? Because if that environment is not connected to how you are setting up your communication, there will be a disconnect. People, you will feel confident and you will feel, we've done an amazing job by getting this comms out within this deadline. But then it lands in a real world scenario with a real person having real shifts. And that is where there's often friction. So I think that is really, really important. For me, those two links, they need to speak to each other, and making sure that your knowledge is updated around where where your employees find themselves is really important. So meeting people where they are at, the comms needs to meet them where they are at. And then a second thing, I guess, is another layer of that. Our stakeholders varying in the business, whether it's sustainability, people team, technology, health and safety, risk, all of those various stakeholders within a big business, they often apply pressure around performance, engagement, clicks, all of those things. And often we rush to deliver that. But I think we need to also think about, and as I said, it is another layer of understanding the environment the employee is in. Is there data sensitivity? Is there Wi-Fi issues? Is the majority of your audience, do they speak a different language? Is English their third language? What kind of shifts are they working? When it comes to the digital format, we need to be looking at short and sharp. So all I'm saying with this is just make sure that you have double checked or thought about or leaned into whether there are also digital barriers that prevent the employees from receiving the communication. So in both those examples, as you can see, you haven't started writing yet. You've not started conceptualizing what the message looks and feels like, but those through lines around what does the environment look like for my employee? What does it feel like for the employee that I'm communicating to? And then practically from a tools perspective, is the message able to travel from the one point to the other point? So this sits outside of editorial, outside of all the wonderful skills that we're carrying, but strategically and practically truly understanding the person you're communicating to, the employee, but also the constraints that sit around that employee. Those are very important things. If those things fall flat consistently, then we have you're going to have a problem, because it'll affect open rates, but also over and above open rates, we're gunning for impact. We want impact. We don't just want the open rates as a vanity metric. Okay, I'm already on point 3. I've just got 5 key things. I think it's important to kind of consolidate and not touch on too many things, but I'm keen to get into the Q&A as well. So one message, many ways. Digital is definitely a very big part of any comms ecosystem, but we need to look at which channels for which employees to deliver that message. Gone are the days where we, can push one channel only. Our employees are diverse, and particularly the front line that we service is very diverse. So what are the touch points that we're looking at? And then again, not going over the line where it's like, okay, we spray and pray and we put it on every single channel that we can find. Try and identify it in a way of looking at it from a primary channel perspective. So where you're going to gather and push your impact into from a primary channel. And then what are my layers? What other two layers can I add in? Is it cascading leader message? Do they have stand-ups within the store environment, within the DC environment, over and above the app communication? So primary channel, where most of your impact is going to come from, and then layering it in with one or two other messages or channels that is going to help support that message. Not a pray and spray, and definitely not a one-hit wonder, but somewhere in the middle. And it really all comes back to the employee. It comes back to the channels that reach them in the best ways, in the most effective way. So every layer and every part of this process is really around being so focused on the employee. We often are so focused on the stakeholders. We're often so focused on, the channels. But the employee, it must be employee-led. And we've almost got to work from the back to the front to see the efficacy that we want to see within our messages and within our engagement spaces. So different channels do different jobs. This one is by far my favorite. We have seen the power of our operations at ShopRite. We as comms, there are places we will never reach. There are people we will never speak to. And it really, really is about having such a close collaboration and building strategic relationships within the operations, because they are the people that will support the message, that will drive the message. They are the people that the regional, within our space, we have regional, divisional is related to our divisions or provinces. Regional sits under them, and then the stores. So there's maybe 10 stores in a region. There's maybe 10 regions in a division. That's how it cascades within our group. So regionals, they visit the stores often. They have a group of stores that they look after. So are you talking to those regional managers? They are connecting with people. And also remember that verbal communication is still the most powerful way to land a message. Looking in someone's eyes and delivering a message packs a punch that an app communication, a notification is supplementary to. If I'm sitting with you, I'm talking to you, I'm looking at you, the power and the impact of that is, I'm not going to say far outweighs digital, but it definitely is a primary sort of, for me, a gold standard. So if you can tap into your operations, the people that sees the other people on the ground, that really is such a key part. We have seen massive growth within projects, within campaigns, within adoption in terms of technologies internally, because we have partnered so closely with our operations. They are really your biggest ally. And that for me is it's my favorite part of it. And knowing that, we can't do it alone. We can't pretend to do it alone. Our operations are truly a powerhouse that helps us get things done. And then I think when it comes to additional metrics and looking at what impact, what performance, what effectiveness looks like, we can't only stop at sends, views, and logins. I think for me, I believe that those are still important. I've spoken about it on my LinkedIn as well. Those are still important because they are comms metrics, and we are comms people. When we completely position the metric in the, say for instance, how many training courses was delivered, that metric in part is to be owned by L&D. So we can't say that if people aren't completing the course, we haven't entirely been successful. There is a collaborative link there in terms of metrics, in terms of performance. We can't completely own that. We need to work collaboratively with our stakeholders. But it is important that we do reflect and ask the right questions. Did we reach the right employees? Did they understand? Data is these days freely available, whether it is on app or email, all kinds of different platforms. We are maturing and have matured our data collection capability quite significantly, also with the dawn of AI. And I think that is important. Delivered, reach, understand, and act. And I think the last thing really, for me, and I'm pretty passionate about designing communication for human consumption. I think often maybe not us as comms professionals, but often our stakeholders, they tend to forget, and it is our job to remind them that there are humans, real people at the end of this, with real challenges, that face transport challenges. Their manager might have, they are being called in by their manager. There are things on their shift that's constantly happening. They are not there waiting for a message to land. So I think if we think about these various things, which of relevancy is for me another big thing, that, communicating the right audience at the right time, using the right channels. There was also a time in internal comms where we really wanted to reach everyone, and you would send the biggest mail that you can to the most amount of people. And now segmentation and targeting really is, it is the golden standard. We need to always be looking at, why is this relevant for that person? And in a decentralized or distributed workforce, that is equally as true. Because if you're constantly sending me things I don't need, constantly sending me things that are not relevant to me, you're teaching me to stop trusting you to send me communication that is valuable. So we have got to protect that with with everything that we have, because every message that you send teaches your employee that they can trust. Every time they receive a notification, they know this is important. If you send messages that they can't use and that is not for them, that is constantly an FYI, you're teaching them inadvertently that the messages I send you is not important. You don't need to look at them. So I think often our stakeholders don't understand that, but we need to be close to that and always trying to apply a strategic lens to the message that we're sending, but also to the habit that we are reinforcing with our communication. So reaching a distributed workforce isn't about finding the perfect channel. I think I've been exposed to many conversations where people have looked for a silver bullet. In such a broad and diverse space, there is no silver bullet. You have to stay close to the people, you have to optimize your channels, you have to optimize your formats, and you have to be agile in your approach. Is this not working? Okay, let's ideate, let's do it differently, let's pivot. That didn't work so well, let's try a different route. I think being agile and understanding your people is one of the biggest contributors to success within our space. It really is about designing communication around how people connect. And if that can kind of be our focus, and I know there's lots of things tagging at us all the time, and we often are challenged to look at value through the eyes of our stakeholder, but our jobs are really to look at it from a comms lens, efficacy, relevance, all of those good things, channel selection that we've now talked about, in order for our message to be successful. Know them, reach them, connect them, equip people, our operations people that have hands and feet on the ground, equip those people and listen so that we can be agile and adapt as we go. That is what success looks like. No perfect formula, but just being intentional about the things that we've spoken about now. Okay, those are my slides. I think I was quicker than expected, but I'm here for a brief message. I think brevity is also a currency that we as comms people need to adapt. We need to be brief, be bright, be brief, and be gone. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Those are
Thanks
my
so much,
words.
Leanna. Thank you. No, that's awesome. I mean, it's brief, but each point I think is packed full of so much that can be unpacked. And we do already have some sort of thought starters and questions in the chat, which I'm going to open with. But if you would love to ask a question, please stick your hand up. We'll prioritize questions that I think are discussional, because that's often where we get the best, have the best sort of gains. But I think a lot of people resonating with your idea of that you can't reach everybody at the same time, and that actually that's an absurd thing to try to do. So how do we activate the right people in the right spaces and places? And maybe I think in your context, you talked about, particularly in the retail environment, you've got team leads who are going to go places that you can't go. Do you have examples, perhaps forums or ways that you help galvanize the people who you know have influence or are champions in order to equip them and enable them to endorse the communications that you send out? How do you drive that from the top centrally?
So we have a group of employees that they are in a certain role, and there is a community for them, and they are sort of comms conduits. We created that group, we manage it. It's a digital a gathering kind of on our app. And then on a weekly basis, whatever is topical, whichever stakeholder we've partnered with, we then send messages. We can monitor the messages. There's polls, and those people are in the stores. They are encouraged to particularly focus on peer-to-peer engagement. So asking a teammate, asking a colleague, reminding the branch manager to put up a poster, they are hands and feet in the store. So that is from a comms perspective, that we've set that functionality up, and they function as a channel effectively. And we work with them quite closely, but we guide the messages that go through that. And then from an operational perspective, I think we need to have a relationship with our operations. So what I mean by that is, if there's a particular campaign around culture, our people partners is what we call them internally, making sure that where there are people partner gatherings that we've perhaps connected so that there's a few slides that can be presented, or knocking on a door and say, I know that you guys meet every month. We've got this new initiative. Can we have 10 minutes? And then, a comms person going into a operational environment, presenting, talking about, say, for instance, a recognition initiative. All the people partners would know about it, but maybe punting the channels or another perspective. And then also providing toolkits. So one pages to those people that are going in the stores so that they are equipped when they need to have a stand up or they need to have a morning huddle, that they are equipped with the words bulleted that they can just pull out of their phone, or if they have their laptop or with them, they are guided then in terms of that and providing that kind of talking points to those people as well. So in our operations, their daily huddles look different, the frequency is different, and that for us is less of a controlled environment. We tap into it and we encourage and we ask that they close the loop, and more often than not they do, and speak verbally to the employees about it. But that's kind of their space. In our space, the comm space, we've got the ambassadors, which is structured, and we set the tone for that. But with our ops, we just make sure that we're tapping into what already exists, and we provide them with resources that they can easily plug and play into the employee spaces. So that has worked for us.
Amazing. So, I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of how sophisticated or unsophisticated, I guess, your channel environment is, our job is to be connectors, right? That's what we do. And sometimes that's highly relational networking and understanding an organization and who to tap. And that just takes time and building trust, which I think is an important one to be reminded of. There's a question here around how do you get engagement data from frontline employees, which I think is a brilliant question.
Yeah, we do have surveys, which is initiated, and in terms of the questions and the thinking around that by our people team. And then we manage the platform, we put the comms together for it. So it's in collaboration with our people team, and that is done, I think twice a month, or I think it's done twice a month. So they complete the surveys. We also have, I mentioned our listening exercises. We do go into the stores and listen to what's asked questions. And then obviously on our platforms where there are formal metrics that can be viewed and can be drawn on, like app communication, there you can see sentiment, you can see comments, you can see reactions, you can see views. And then we can see the profile of the people as well. So that is more of a sort of app communication, digital traditional dashboard metric. But then we also have our other engagements, which when we go into the stores, and then also our surveys that we do, and not only the HR survey, but there are sometimes brand surveys and things. So there's a few things we can pull on, but it just depends on what is the ask, and then making sure that we've connected it to the right platform with the right message to make it easy for the employees to answer.
And do you have just because there are questions around what platforms you use, and I think your point is you've probably got quite a few, but do you have a central app that you use as your sort of primary comms platform, and that's got all your workforce has access to that, I'm going to guess?
Yes. Okay. There's about 80,000 people on there. We've just transitioned onto a new platform because we wanted to combine task management with employee communication. So what is so powerful about that is we combining operations with comms, because previously comms would be, that's where you go for the news, that's where you go for the updates, but work related things, which is people's day jobs, they go somewhere else for that. And by bringing that together, we actually get the leverage where people are coming in to complete tasks, but they can now also view the CEO video in one place. So that was a game changer for us. But again, we probably grew to 80,000 in 2 months because of our operations. And that's why I say ops is really powerful. They are where the people are. So we need to take hands with our operations. And Sarah, you spoke about building those strategic relationships. Who are those managers? Is it a 10-minute connect explaining the channels? Is it when you're in the area or you're going to another province to pop in and go sit down? They might not think that they need that connection, but you need to put it on the agenda, because next time when something happens or something's going down, or you need someone to help reinforce a message, you would have met with that manager. He knows your name. There's a strong relational currency that's going on there. So in the back of your mind, or always be like, who can I build the relationships? Who of the ops people can I go sit with? Can I go present the channel with? Can I go present stats to? Just to proactively build those relations with our operations. That also gives them an opportunity to understand better what it is that we do. Because often they don't understand it. They're just, just get the message out, send the message out, but there's no understanding. And often I find that they are open to those conversations.
And I guess to that point, I mean, there's also questions around tracking and reporting, which is also largely dependent on the platforms that you're using, and
Yeah.
many platforms have that embedded. But actually partnering with the right stakeholders internally means that you also start to understand what kind of measurement matters, right? Because the irony is also ops have their own budgets and
They
their own
do.
investment case, right? So if you know that you've got a key stakeholder in human capital or in ops, or in business, the business strategy office as examples, and you understand what's important to them, you also start to know what to measure outside of your usual click rates, open rates, engagement rates, which are only sort of a superficial layer of where the value is. Because I think to one of your earlier slides, it's not just about did you see the message, it's like, did you adopt it? Did it change your behavior? And so if we know that operations need to reduce a certain staff issue by a certain percent, and we can measure whether pre or post comms that's happened, we can certainly claim some of that attribution, which then builds that relationship and that trust to trust you to be more strategic in those conversations.
100%. And I think the inverse there for me, and maybe the caution is that sometimes we want to maybe rush through, because I've also seen a lot of chatter within our space around going to the metric, the impact metric, which is how many training pieces, how much training was successfully completed. And there is a collaborative accountability there, because we've got to also remember that there are things that business needs to own. They are, if it's the L&D department, they are mandated to deliver training. And if they're lifting that buck and kind of wanting to bring it over altogether in terms of training because you did the comms, I find a flaw there as well. For me, we are in comms, and the work that we do and the expertise that we carry is comms related and related to our channels, to our messages, and getting that right. Yes, it should have a knock on, but we can't fully own that as full accountability for that training or that L&D. The L&D also, their questions must be optimized, their systems must be easy, because if those things offer blockages and barriers, it's not the comms that's not working. There's something else that's at play. So it is definitely collaborative impact. But for us as comms, we've also got to be looking and helping L&D to say, hey, this isn't the easiest here. At the end, our recommendation would be X, Y, and Z. And whether they take that up or not is a conversation with the stakeholder.
So maybe just because there are lots of questions around measurement, I think it's something people are always trying to navigate better in their environments. Maybe we could talk a little bit about what you as comms own as measurement, and then what you would collaborate with another function on. So for example, ops, L&D. What is your baseline report that you insist on seeing regardless of which stakeholders involved? And then what do you elevate out with other stakeholders?
Yeah, I think the comms metrics that we lean on in terms of email, it would be sort of open rates, click rates. People stay on an email for about 3 seconds. We try not to lean too much in the click out to. It's something that I see a lot, that people are trying to put a lot of clicks, or they're relying on the click to get people to information. Most audiences don't want to read. They don't like to read. They scan the information and then they click out. So that is why we look more at our open rates. It's in terms of just email. It's not a perfect metric. I know that, but I think that does give indication for success and impact. And I think in our app space, we're spoiled for choice. We've got sentiment, we've got active users, we've got views, comments, reactions, likes. So we've got a dashboard linked to our app environment. So there we are spoiled for choice when it comes to communication metrics. And I think we compile, sort of depending on when the campaign finishes, we do a post-campaign report touching on some of those main metrics. And then we also talk to the stakeholder about, say, for instance, if it's bursary applications, we talk to them and ask them, once we've delivered that report, how for this month or for the last 3 months, say the campaign was 3 months, how has your bursary applications gone up or down? And we meet with them. They talk to us a little bit about it. They talk to us about their barriers. And then we try to just keep that conversation going. But in terms of ownership of that bursary applications, in essence, it is the bursary team's responsibility to own, and they are the accountable party for how much bursaries they are successfully granting to employees. So that is 100% their metric. We come with together with them and we say, okay, we're going to push communication, and these are our success metrics. And together, putting those things together, we can see, okay, this gives us a full picture of impact. But bursary completions and how many bursaries they've awarded, that is a business objective, and that is a business deliverable to own. We contribute to that, but they need to, at the end of the day, report into the business around how many bursaries have you paid out, how effective has it been. They can cite the comms as a collaborative contributor, but at the end of the day, that's their metric to uphold.
Cool, thank you. No, that's clear. And I think, and there's also lots of questions around, I think specifically, what app do you guys use? And then do you use any other particular MarTech or comms platforms, whether it be Microsoft Suite or just Outlook? Maybe if you could just give a quick rundown, because I think people are always looking for new tools.
Mm. Yeah, we were on Ystalk's platform. So I think there's a couple of people that might be familiar with that name. We have now transitioned to Ubic, which is a global platform. There's a lot of our counterparts also that's on that platform. And as I said, for us, it was largely and purely about bringing together task management and employee communication into one central front door. That was the win, and that's what we're focusing on. So that's our platform. Email, we use Everlytic as our email management tool. I know we are looking at sort of at some stage bringing the two together, because I know that there's email capability on our digital platform as well, but our app platform is not that old. We're only between 6 months, 6 to 8 months into the process. So we will transition all of that into one space, but at the moment we are looking at those two platforms, app and then email. The other DigiWalls, and those are the digital screens across the offices and in the stores. They are run by a company and a system. We work with them. That's centrally managed. I'm trying to think. Intranet, SharePoint. Yeah, those are the majority of our tools digital tools that we use. We use the app a lot. That is really our primary, that's our hero in the mix. Mm.
Okay, cool. And I just want to answer some questions here around Outlook. I mean, we've experienced this too. There are lots of limitations to Outlook, and even just from a business continuity, there's a problem, right? What you want to be able to do as a comms function is to be able to centrally control communications. And so that means that if my colleague Leanne, for example, or someone is away, I can communicate to the same group of people that she can, which is a really important thing, particularly in crisis, that you're not reliant on an individual's in Outlook and a manual audience list. So that's a really big piece, and it's a really big reason for a business case to invest in email platforms. And email platforms like Everlytic, that Leanne's talking about, aren't hugely expensive. They're not built to you sort of API in. The other thing that's really important is if you're in a regional distributed workforce like ShopRite Group, is you might have multiple different legal entities that have different payrolls. And so you might have multiple different businesses that are managing different sort of audience lists. And again, difficult for you to be compliant and to compile that manually on Outlook. So again, a platform like an Everlytic, and Everlytic's not the only one, it's just also one we've been talking about here, where you can upload those lists. They're securely stored, it's PAPIer, GDPR compliant, and you can have people helping administrate, distribute, build emailers, but not necessarily even having access to the audience list. So it creates a layer of security. And then to the point in the conversation, you can then measure far more deeply than just how many bounced and how many received, which also becomes really important from an organizational point of view. And I think as you get into complex organizations where maybe you start sending on behalf of people, on behalf of a CEO, again, being able to manage that centrally is quite important. So, and I think, yeah, Viva Insights and the Microsoft Suite SharePoint also has a newsletter function within it, which is quite interesting. There are lots of different ways to slice and dice that, but I think using Outlook alone is very limiting and makes it really hard for you to then prove your case as a comm specialist if you can't measure deeply.
No, definitely.
Sorry, I'm just also... I think we need another session on what can be done with SharePoint and Viva. So actually, interestingly, Sam is on the call is laughing because Fika does a white paper once a year, and Sam's busy leading that project. And one of the conversations we're having in that is on SharePoint, because we did a survey earlier this year. I think lots of you took part, and that came up as a huge bugbear. I think so many comm specialists are being forced into the Microsoft Suite because that's what their organization has, but aren't necessarily able to get the full value out of that. So please keep an eye out for that white paper due to launch a bit later this year. There's some conversations on SharePoint and that, and I think it's a great idea. Sam's got a webinar that she did on specifically on Viva Engage, which is on our website, on the Afika website. So if you go to the Afika website, you do have to sign in as a member, but that's free, and then you can go and rewatch that webinar. I will drop that link in here. But it's also like a really great resource if you sort of stuck specifically on the Viva space. Are there any other questions from anyone in the room whilst we are all here?
Well, I asked something about AI tools.
Yes, go for it.
No, I wrote it in the chat, but
sorry, where am I?
since
I
I'm
obviously missed
speaking,
it. Go for it, tell us.
I'm asking, how do you leverage AI tools to measure impact? I think we have many, but maybe if we can hear from Leanne.
There we go. I'm off mute. AI at the moment is really largely used in my space, in our space, as content to supplement content creation, content editing. I think from a measurement perspective, some of those AI solutions are built in. So on our app platform, there is the AI looks at the sentiment. So the AI is powering the back end and analyzing the comments, and that's built in. I think we haven't explored a standalone AI measurement tool. I also haven't seen. So if you do know, then please let me know. I'm quite keen to also learn more about that. But I think for AI for us is really at the moment just helping with first drafting productivity, and then in terms of also looking at numbers once they come through, assisting with sort of insights. So once you have a certain set of data over a certain amount of period, AI Copilot or any of those goodies, they can really just help you get into how to analyze that data from a best practice perspective. So I think at the moment, apart from a standalone tool, AI is really helping us on the reporting front in terms of making sense of the data and connecting the dots. It can really give you a really great template within minutes, seconds, and then you can plug in and then use critical thinking to just pull that all together. So that's how we're using it at the moment.
Just to build on that, and I can see my colleague Emily on the call. One of the things we've been playing with, and it really is experimentation at the moment, is you can and you can kind of Google your way through it to a degree, but you can build HTML dashboards in Copilot where you can start uploading spreadsheets or raw data. And to Leanne's point, it can articulate that in a visual way. And then over time, it can give you your trends and your benchmarks. And so where you would typically need quite a lot of help from someone probably smarter than all of us, actually Copilot can do a lot of that work for you. And it takes a bit of iterating. It's initially not simple, but once that agent is built and you're starting to upload, let's say you get a downloadable CSV file from LinkedIn or from the back end of Viva Engage or even Everlytic, most of them you can do that, then you can upload it and it can start to visualize that data. And then what's really fun is when you think about your different stakeholders or clients internally, you can teach that agent to start to visualize the data that's relevant for them. which I think is the bit that's really hard, is like we've got these top level insights, but what actually drives impact for our human capital team, or specifically for our L&D team? And I think Copilot, and I'm referencing Copilot because that's what I'm familiar with, but then there are many different types, can help you articulate that and sort of distill that into the key things that then you apply your brain to really articulate for the business. And an agent that you train can start to build that knowledge over time, which is really helpful. And then you can start to share that agent with your colleagues, which is very helpful because they might be sourcing data or information from different parts of the business. So it can also consolidate some of that thinking, which is super helpful.
Yeah.
Which we're finding, fun to play with.
Definitely.
Beyond engagement and awareness metrics, how do you evaluate the behavioral impact of your internal campaigns?
I think when that brief comes in, I think one of the important considerations is to understand what impact and meaning feels like for the stakeholder. That can vary, but I think it's important right off the bat to have that value conversation with your stakeholder and say, what does it mean for you? What does value mean for you? What does impact mean for you? So then working that into the campaign, and then you can add your comms metrics there as well. So looking at that together with the stakeholder, but you can standardize it, so you can have a standardized report and kind of make sure that you're ticking all your comms boxes. But then I think having clear understanding at the beginning before things kick off, what impact and value means for the stakeholder, and then angling things that way, and then including that in your reporting. That is normally how we tackle the reporting on our side.
Awesome. And then the question here, do you integrate radio into your internal comms, and what do you find helpful to keep staff engaged all the time? I love that question because I think audio is so underrated.
It is. Audio is underrated. We did, for our Women's Month campaign, we actually have radio retail in the stores. So if you guys are in the stores, Checkers, ShopRite, YouSave, Unique, you guys will see Pet Shop. You guys will hear that there's often a radio playing, and that is run through Zapop. And we, before trading and post-trading, when employees are, for instance, coming in a bit earlier, setting up their stations, cleaning up the stores, etc., then we let certain messages play, and we schedule the messaging. We say, okay, maybe they'll be in terms of 3 times this week, then we'll have a break, then maybe next week again. And for Women's Month specifically, we had some of our frontline women recording what Women's Month means to them and what it means to be a woman in retail. And it was short, 20 seconds. And for the entire Women's Month, in the beginning of every week, we had those messages play. And we also put that audio on the app. So the app, you overlay it with an image, and then you can pull people in with a quote and an image, but then, they can also listen to the audio. And it's gotten some great views on our app as well. So we could use the audio in more than one place. But radio is definitely, it is a supplementary channel. At the moment for us, it's not one of our primary channels, but we layer it in with, for instance, app, and then radio retail, and maybe the DigiWalls in the store. So DigiWalls works on the same principle as the radio before and after trading. You'll be able to see, because while you're in trading, it's customer domain. We are focused on our customers. And then before that, while people are setting up, things can run on the screen, whether it's recognition awards or health and safety or well-being or whatever messages we want to land. We then use those in tandem. So yes, we do use radio. I love that medium as well.
Amazing. And podcast? Question around podcast?
We've got an annual podcast edition. So once in the year, we don't print our newspaper. We do it digitally in podcasts, and then we get our employees in the studio. We have a host. We video the whole thing, and then we release about 7 episodes. We package it, and then annually we have our podcast edition of our company newspaper.
That's lovely. Okay, great question.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions before we say goodbye? Thank you. This has been really, really insightful. It's always so awesome to see inside the lens of what's going on. There's a question.
Hi. I just want to find out And we work in this industry currently, and I'm trying to convince our leadership to for us to move from Outlook in terms of sending emails and stuff and moving on to SharePoint or an even better system that will allow us to track who's clicking on the links and who's engaging with the content that we send. Because I'm struggling with that and I'm trying to find that niche. This is why we need to move from Outlook. But I always comes back to say it's the preferred way of doing business. I don't know how she was able to convince her leadership to move because our communication channel, it's not working. And the only time it is working is when we say when stand a chance to free giveaway or event happen. But the serious comms, we actually don't know if employees are engaging with it or not. Any
Yeah.
advice regarding that, Leanne?
That's a tricky one, hey? I think at some stage in our careers, we were all at that junction where we were either battling a little bit with leadership to bring in the tools that we need to be more effective. I think when you are having those impact conversations, it is important to focus on the benefit that it's going to bring to the organization. So Outlook, for instance, and doing a versus the one versus the other one with, an email management system, it brings through open rates. You'll be able to see performance. We'll be able to target messages better. So there are set benefits that is well known within the industry, and those email management platforms, they will also be able to provide quite robust information around how you can have that impact conversation. And I think if you receive a no, give it a little bit and then keep on knocking, and try and look out for examples and case studies of things that you face every day, that will prove that point or that use case. And I think it's important when you do go speak to your executives or to your leadership that try and put the information together from a very metrics-driven perspective. They are very focused on numbers, bottom line. If we're coming in with softer words around engagement, and it does lead to that, and it doesn't water down the output that we're bringing, but think of them as your audience in that instance, and you needing to land that message. And your audience has a very numbers orientated, profit orientated perspective. So you as a comms person, we have to meet them where they are, and we have to present the message to them in a way that will resonate to them. So they are no different from sending out a mass piece of communication where you're tailoring and making it relevant and drawing the value right to the top where they don't need to go dig for it. So I would say continue having those conversations. Make sure that you package it in a way that is exec friendly, because as comms people, we sometimes want to put the soft before the direct. Go their way, do direct and do numbers and focus on that. And then I think, focus on the benefits it will bring to the organization, where you are now and where you will be going if we implement this system. And I think keep at it, don't give up.
Thank you.
Renati.
Thanks, Sarah. My question is back to Leanne. I think we missed it on the chat. I just wanted to find out, because I'd just like to explore the app that you actually use for the radio engagements at ShopRite. Thank you.
It's called Radio Retail, and it's actually a system that runs in the stores. It's not primarily used for communication, but it's something that we leverage off of. It is the in-store radio system for the customers. That is what Radio Retail represents, and they run through a company called Zapop. And then we record, and they sometimes even give voiceover artists, and we work with them to put the file together, and they also do the scheduling and the releasing of the file into all our stores. So that is how that works. It is done through a company, and it is actually just leveraging off in-store customer radio.
So maybe the last word. Not so much a question, but more comments. Just to say thank you to Sarah and Leanne. I think judging from the comments in the chat, everybody really enjoyed this masterclass and found it very useful and powerful. So thank you both. I think what was really great for me was that sometimes the most effective communication is a 5-minute conversation. I think sometimes we just forget that we can walk over to somebody's desk instead of having to send an email. So I think
Yep.
that was such an important reminder. But then also some of the themes that came out today was trust. I think we're living in an age of varying degrees of trust because of AI and security breaches and all of those kinds of things. And we hold so much power as internal comms and corporate communicators to really reinforce and underscore an organization's trust. And then connection and relationship building also. And then just on the metrics, I think I just wanted to echo what Leanne was saying about, going in with the metrics, to be seen as strategic enablers, as internal comms practitioners and specialists. If we ever want to be seen as beyond just a post box, we have to go in with the metrics that is going to really show the link between what is going to enable the business strategy, and not just, all the touchy-feely stuff that we believe in, but it isn't what drives business decisions often. And so I think, put your strategic hat on when you go in and have those tough conversations, and just know that there are a whole team of people that are walking into the room with you. All of the people on this call want you to succeed. So thank you.
So well said, Sam. Thanks.
And if it's budget issues, we all have to go cry. I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have. And all I can say is you're not alone. Thank you so much, everybody. We are running out of time. Thank you so much, Leanne, for just being so generous with your time and with your sort of expertise and experience. That's what being part of Efika is all about. We will get this webinar up onto our website as soon as we have the time to do that. But please go to efika.coza, sign up, join our community, and be part of sharing and sort of co-learning together. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful Friday. May it be calm and not filled with any comms crises. And enjoy your weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, team. Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Thank you so
Bye.
much.